So this is an analysis for revision on To Autumn by John Keats. And so we'll go through stanza by stanza, but these are to supplement your notes and not to be the entire notes that you use, because there's plenty more that you can say other than what will be spoken about in this video. So to read the stanza first of all: season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the fat sheaves run, to bend with apples the moss cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more, later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. So one of the first things that you notice is that in this stanza there are so many images of growth and richness and weight, underlined, for example, load, bend, ripeness, swell, plump, more, and then the repetition of more, over-brimmed as well. So it's you get a real sense of how rich autumn is and of the harvest that they will have. You've got the personification introduced in line 2, where you've got the idea of autumn conspiring with the sun, and calling them bosom friends. So the harmony between the seasons is evident really early on in the poem. And you've also got the idea of this pastoral or rural idyll, talking about the mossed cottage trees, and thinking about little cottages, and the fruit that they will have, and in the orchards. It's a really lovely image. Weight and richness kind of pervades everywhere. So in line 6 it talks about how the ripeness is really rich right into the core of the fruit, and then immediately after the semicolon in line 7 you've got the ripeness of the fruit right to the very core, but then there's an explosion of growth and it's swelling the gourd, plumping the hazel shells. So this idea of weight and richness, and plenty is everywhere. It also introduces the idea that seasons are cyclical, and it introduces the balance and harmony. So summer also needs the nuts and seeds, and it helped produce, so that they will become later flowers for the bees, and they can be pollinated again to produce this rich harvest. So the idea of a cyclical harmony is very present in this poem. Highlighted in red are all of the double consonants, unless I've missed any, that are in this stanza. And I think the double consonants create a really soothing tone, and allow you to kind of pause on certain words, especially with the repetition of the double L's and the double E's and the double S's. It's very soothing, it's very comfortable. You get the impression of the beauty of the season. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swathe and all its twined flowers, and sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. So this stanza can really kind of be summed up as the harvesting stanza. You've got the personification of autumn as a season, often referred to as a woman, although the gender and the sex is never identified, but the idea of the hair being soft, and it's kind of lifted by the wind and the wind. Many critics think that it's personifying autumn as a female, starting with a rhetorical question as well, so directly having that connection with autumn, being able to ask her questions, or him. Anything underlined in this poem is any kind of references to relaxation, or where the hard work is over. We've got references to intoxication as well, so the idea of sleep, the idea of being drowsy, the fume of poppies, relating to opium, and it was very common at the time to smoke opium. I think 2 years after this poem was published in 1821, De Quincey published his Confessions of an English Opium Eater. So the practice was rife at the time that Keats was writing, and also opium would be prescribed for certain medical conditions, so it was fairly common. You've also got the word laden, as if something is really heavy and weighing down your head, and cider press as well, so the idea of being drunk, being intoxicated, and being drowsy as a result. The hard work of the season is over once the harvesting is done. Oozings, I think, suggest concentrated sweetness. I think it's a lovely image, and all of the ripeness in the first stanza is being completely drained, completely used. Every last ounce, every last oozing is being used. A reference also to a gleaner in line 19. Gleaners used to be allowed to go into the fields once the harvesting team had left and to kind of pick the last bits that they could to glean the field. So they're usually peasants, usually lower class, but it meant that nothing seems to go to waste. Every little part is being taken, and the oozings kind of emphasise. Where are the songs of spring? Ay, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. And full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne, hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the red-breast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. So you've got Keats acknowledging the contrast between seasons, but he's noticing the beauty in all of them. So he again starts his stanza with a rhetorical question and thinking about the songs of spring, and that instant kind of idea of a song is resonates throughout this stanza with the auditory images that are highlighted in red for you. Autumn, although it doesn't have any flowers blooming, it has its own beauty and bloom, and in this case, line 25, it's actually the clouds that are blooming. So it's the idea that Keats is noticing that beauty, even in the clouds and in the small details. You've got a sense of movement and kind of sleepy, relaxed energy. So the idea of the river moving, the light wind, it's very gentle, it's very relaxed. It's almost as if the season is coming to a close, the year is coming to a close, and everything's starting to wind down after the harvesting. You've also got the blending of opposites, which is quite interesting. So, for example, a wailful choir. She wouldn't normally associate choirs with being particularly sad unless they're mourning something. And you've also got full-grown lambs, which is an interesting image to use. Rather than the word sheep, he's chosen to use the word full-grown lambs, perhaps to link back to spring, and what happens after spring, perhaps to link into the cycle of the seasons. It would be interesting to think about that and to interpret it in your own way. Auditory references are highlighted in red. And just to make one brief comment about the structure, it's an ode, and you can watch the video to revise that. But the rhyming structure is A, B, A, B, C, D, E, D, C, C, E in each stanza. Each of them have 11 lines. The rhythm is an iambic pentameter, and the first 4 lines set up the theme of the stanza. So the first one, for example, richness and weight, the second one, harvesting, and the third one, song and spring, and the 7 subsequent lines elaborate on the theme.